Afternoon, everyone. Good to see everyone arriving. As traditional, we'll just give it a minute or so to get a chance for everyone to get onto the call. As usual, lovely to see some familiar faces. Mr. Mullins, how lovely to see you. I don't know what time it is for you. It's sometime in the morning, I guess. Yeah, so we've got some familiar faces, some friends, some colleagues, people from all parts of the food chain come on these webinars. We've got some end users, we've got consultants. From the end user from the end user community, particularly welcome my friends from the LTSMG. Adam, lovely to see you. I think we've got Aaron coming at some point, maybe too. And resellers, everybody, and it's really lovely to see people here. So let us make a start now. We've got a good number here already, and let's make a start of it all. Right, so welcome to this afternoon's webinar. Today is going to be partly a kind of a roundup of the previous webinars that I've been doing, but also a couple of new thoughts. I started to do these webinars mainly around Teams rooms, and hybrid spaces at the beginning of the year, it's been a fantastic experience for me. I'm a specialist, from one particular area, and it's been fantastic to meet loads of people from Microsoft. They've been very supportive about what I'm doing. I had a lovely call this afternoon with Don Lambresa of Project AV. I'd heard some really interesting and good things about Project AV, and really interesting to see how the Project AV has really focused on Teams rooms and what rewards that's brought them, and also just lovely for me because then I can meet subject matter experts in the other areas that I'm trying to desperately skill up on. So this is me. I'm the owner and the director of Visual Displays. I lead our small specialist team. We formerly were Paradigm AV. I consult in these subjects that I'm talking about, but it's very important to underline that I'm not an AV consultant, because I work a lot with and for AV consultants, and I sit in a sort of specialist niche out with that area. I've had a long history with AVIXA and Infocom as was. I've been involved in the leadership of that. I was president in 2012. They now call it chairman of the board, which sounds a bit more grown up somehow. And I currently chair AVIXA's standards group, the standard steering committee. We call ourselves a SteerCo. Been heavily involved in either leading or writing the standards, particularly all of the standards I shall refer to today. And that kind of it does inform a lot of what we are going to talk about today. Let me just make sure I've got everything up and going. On my webinar on Tuesday, I was switching, I thought very professionally, between various packages and screens, and apparently I was running for 10 minutes on the wrong screen. So I'm going to keep the chat open, so any heckling and kindly notes from the sidelines will be most welcomed. So the background to this is that during the course of last year, I really began to take note of what Microsoft were doing. And in particular, this one piece this document that was put out last year, bringing Microsoft Teams to your meeting rooms, was a really intelligent and thoughtful addition to the whole vision thing about how hybrid spaces can work with. And this was authored by Jimmy Vaughan and Joe Sarasin, and Jimmy in particular has been very supportive of what I was doing. Then just before Christmas, I was asked to write as a result of the LinkedIn posts that I do pretty much on a daily basis. I was asked by AV Magazine to write a thought piece about this, and that got incredible reaction. And so that was really an inspiring moment for me. But it was set in the context of the thing I was kind of making. The point I was making with that was it was very apparent that people had been installing Teams rooms, Zoom rooms, and so forth, out of the sheer need of getting them in quickly in 2021. But that this was much before all the kind of the workflows and how these spaces are going to be used. Had really become crystallized and developed, and that's still to a certain extent, case in point now. And I think that's one of the backgrounds to what I'm talking about today is just to think about how we can install the best spaces as possible, but also to make them as future-proof as possible. I am going to show this video again because it's only a minute and a half, and it's one of the kind of the visual pieces that Microsoft have put out. But I think it's actually, for what it does, it actually sets out the store very well. So apologies if you've seen it before, but I think it is worth replaying.
Today's Microsoft Teams rooms bridge the gap between in-person and remote meeting attendees, providing everyone high-quality, inclusive experiences. Going forward, these rooms will deliver more natural and immersive experiences for hybrid work. The focus room will evolve to connect in-person and remote attendees in a more unified experience, with a larger screen where interactions feel more natural as you sit face-to-face across from life-size remote colleagues, a camera placed at eye level to improve eye contact, spatial audio so you hear people's voices from their position on the screen, and to enrich real-time collaboration, meeting chat notes and actions will be at the forefront of all Teams rooms. Larger rooms with more attendees make it challenging for people working remotely to know who is present and who's talking. Teams rooms will deliver a meeting experience where everyone is fully represented and connections feel natural. We have reimagined the meeting room to bring people face-to-face with remote colleagues and unlock more space for people, content, and collaboration. Technology will fade to the background, with premium microphones hidden in the ceiling. Intelligent camera technology will bring in-room participants clearly into view through individual video streams. And spatial audio will help remote participants establish presence with a virtual seat in the room. All so that you have more authentic connections with everyone in the meeting. Our vision for meetings is about leveling the playing field for everyone, where remote and in-person attendees are represented equally and everyone can collaborate without compromise.
Right, I hope that came through okay, but I hope you'll agree that that's actually, I think, quite a useful laying out of the Microsoft vision. And although I'm kind of using Teams rooms really as a generic term, like a Hoover for hybrid spaces, I think that material that they've put out is actually very, very useful because it actually talks to the whole issue of hybrid spaces in itself. But of course, one thing here, which is in some levels it might appear to be a retro thing, is that Microsoft are really making projection as a core element of the deliverables for actually being able to install these Teams rooms to the standard that they want, and that's something that I'm going to unpick as we go through. So in the third of the three webinars that we did, we looked at the hybrid meeting space from a design perspective, For those of you who weren't on that, and if you're interested, the recordings of all these webinars, are available. I think you can just get them directly off the website, but just ping me a message or drop me an email or something if you want any of these. But I think the thing to highlight from this is that the context of the Microsoft vision pieces is that what they've done is that they've moved themselves firmly into the physical room space. They've gone away from being a purveyor of your apps and software and hardware and certified hardware, and actually made a big step into the room space itself. And there were many fails last year because systems had to be installed so hastily due to sort of client need. It was obviously an inadvertent thing, but it also kind of effectively meant that many AV companies had to really act like IT companies, just getting the kit, putting it in. But the highlight of one of the big themes from the Microsoft thought pieces is how there are some real opportunities and of course challenges for creating spaces with exceptional user experiences. It's really not about the kit. And so the way I teach this subject is that I break the room design into these granular pieces. And really kind of make the point that it's very much a kind of a pre-technology things. We're looking to come up with metrics for how the room should present itself before you start thinking about the technology. It's one of our kind of it's a go-to weakness, if you like, in AV, where we're technology enthusiasts, and of course technology is absolutely critical and pivotal to doing the thing, but it's not the whole story. And in the same way that I'm an evangelist for using the AVIXA standards to get the spaces right this year, because using the AVIXA standards, which I'll be discussing or covering at least briefly during today's session. There are other environmental standards. There are tools and environmental standards that really hook very neatly into the AVIXA standards. And I use those to help people get the display and the room lighting right and in balance. But that, as an example of those. But just coming back now to the the big sort of headline statement piece in the Microsoft vision thing, is that the new front row layout, which we will unpack as we go through. This is one of those really sort of striking images there, and of course it's just a visual. But in fact, it's a really helpful piece to kind of organize our thinking about. You'll see a theme here. My thing is to break things down into the granular pieces, just to address the right individual pieces, so that to help you get the thing right overall. And the things that I'm just going to talk about quickly now, but also as we go through, just to kind of for us to have a look at this visual and to actually think what it's telling us. So first of all, obviously, its size, it's of a magnitude, it's of a display size that that we haven't seen before. Hence the projection, but I'm going to come back to that. The image is really high contrast. It's not high luminance. This is an image that you can see all day, happily watch all day. And for my friends on the higher education on campuses, this thing about getting the luminance right is actually critically important, because the poor students might have to sit in a lecture theatre for hours at a time concentrating. So getting the luminance right is important. It's got fantastic black levels. That is a bit of a trick with projection, but again, we'll talk about that as we go through. a really massive thing in my view is the fact that it's a matte, it's a non-reflective screen. So that if you like deals with the quality of the image. Then moving into sort of the dimensional part of it, we've got new aspect ratios. How are we going to deal with that? And there are different resolutions. How are we going to deal with that too? The other things I would talk about are the image baseline. You know, if the display is going to fulfill a different function now, where, as you can see here as an example, where the main content window, it's like we've gone back to a picture-in-picture thing. The main content window is a window within the overall display. If the bottom row of is going to be these people, the baseline, actually the image baseline, that is to say the distance between finished floor level and the bottom of the display, can actually be much lower than we ever thought of before. And that gives us the opportunity to, you know, again, it gives us an opportunity to get the screen size absolutely right. Camera position, I'm going to cover that because if you look at that image, there's no camera shown on that. But I don't know if you noticed during the video, when they were showing a version of that, you could see the camera was actually, you know, in the screen around there. Camera position is a big thing. Projection configuration, well, I'm going to unpack that and talk about that. And viewer locations and angles of view. This is actually quite challenging, isn't it? You know, the screen is very high, and again, it's all about going back to basics and using the DISCAS image standard. Now, the size is so important, and I just can't emphasize that enough, because if the folk at the back can't see, then you're kind of wasting your money on the other kit that you're installing. It's so important that the users in the second half of the room can both see and engage with the content that's there, and that's the real kind of room design, you know, 101 for me. And just to look at this in a bit more detail here, I'm just using the numbers here as an example. But, you know, one thing that is absolutely for certain is that we're going to be seeing the main content appearing in windows within the display. You know, until this year and the release of Front Row, the screen content height has always been synonymous with the display height, but now this is different. So we're going to have to apply DISCAS to the content window, and you know, we tend to use this default 3% element height, which equates to the 6:1 rule in DISCAS, which is to say that the farthest viewer should be no more than 6 times the height of the image. But if we've got the content window, which is only, say, 60%, 0.6 of the total image height, then that ratio becomes 3.6 to 1. So there's a challenge, and you know, there's a thought. Yeah, so those are the kind of things to do with the quality of the image. But you know, one thing that is often, you know, when we talk about contrast and brightness and so forth, one thing that we don't cover enough is this thing, the issue of asthenopia. Asthenopia is the fancy word for eye strain. And the metric for that, which is which comes from environmental standards rather than from AVIXA's AV standards, it's to do with task luminance ratio. And this is just a way of saying, or a way of describing the fact that as you look around a space, at your neighbors, at the screen, at the content on the desk, whatever it is, it's really important, because your eye is also a muscle. It's important that the luminance levels, the brightness levels of all the things that you look at are within a certain range, so that you don't have to, your eye doesn't have to keep working away. And that is a pull from a calculator that you can get from my website. By the way, everyone who, you know, you'll get all the materials from this and links to be able to download that. But that's a calculator you're very welcome to have as a free download from my website. But you know, the thing that this does, you know, loop back to is that in fact, to have really good displays, it's just the fundamental thing is to have really good black levels. It's kind of counterintuitive, but if you focus on the black levels, then that's how you get good contrast, and which in itself is synonymous with image quality. And just to kind of make the point a bit wider, is that what Microsoft have done in particular by putting out this material is that they've actually thrown focus on the displays and how we do the thing now. One thing that some of you who know me know I always riff on about it, which really appalls me, is to see all these shiny displays that are out there. Ambient light has an effect on every display, and there are a lot of displays there where they're too bright, they're shiny. It's like looking at people stuck in an aquarium, usually too small as well. And so this thing about having a matte surface, doesn't matter what display type it is absolutely critical, I think. So Microsoft have nailed their colors to the mast in order to deliver really good Teams Room experiences. Projection is absolutely part of the mix. And this might seem a bit of a retro thing, because speaking as a specialist in projection, speaking as a manufacturer and a distributor, we've seen the industry effectively de-skill with projection, and so to bring it back into focus, it's not about just doing it again, but it's got to be done properly. You're going to get nowhere near those kinds of levels of contrast unless you use the right materials and do it properly. So these images here, the thing they've got in common, and they've both been shot with iPhones, and they've both been shot on university campuses. The one on the right, that's a typical, that's something that happens on most campuses where building services or facilities management kindly give the technology managers lighting which shines brightly on the display, and they spend good money trying to cancel out something at the displays on which we've also spent good money on doing. But the one on the left is an example of a project we did at Glasgow University. I was up there last week with a video crew shooting a case study for that. But we've got 30 displays on that campus. We did that with the lovely team at Kinley AVMI, as was. It's a superb space, but we've got images there, we've got displays there from 100 inches right up to 8 meters wide. And this is this is a lovely case study because apart from being a fantastic result, it was they had considered DV-LED in this case, which is a great technology for signage, but not for pedagogical or display purposes, or for serious content, and it's also way cheaper. So the riff about projection done properly is that there's another kind of inversion here that needs to be addressed, and that is the traditional thing about specifying a projector first. That has to stop. The thing to do is to choose the right ambient light rejecting screen material, for size, for its properties, relative to the space it's in, relative to the application, the purpose being put to, and then from that you use the calculators to drive the projector requirements, and that's how you do that. There's a kind of a process that you need to go through in order to get to that thing where you're looking at getting the size right, going back to my riff from earlier on, then looking at contrast and luminance, and then also thinking about resolution. Then that will give you the specification that you need. But the thing about the process is that in practice, it's an iterative, that's easy for me to say, isn't it? An iterative process where you'll go through the contrast and the luminance steps a few times and to tune the thing to get it right. Like say you want to have the luminance of the display is equal or less to around 250 to 300 candelas per square meter, or nit in other money, and the contrast ratio, no matter what the display is, needs to be at least 15 to 1. And that applies to flat panel displays as well. And that 15 to 1 number, by the way, looks really low, but it doesn't refer to the brochure contrast ratio. It refers to, if you like, the old ANSI contrast ratio. Namely, it's about using a checkerboard to display a black and white pattern. And what you're doing is you're measuring the differences between the black level and the white level on the same screen at the same time, which is what we need to know in order to deliver an actual good experience. We handle a wide range of ALR materials. We distribute them with Draper, Euroscreen, and DNP, of course. And we use them in our products and our solutions, but it's only DNP that has the standards related calculation tools that are needed to reach the Microsoft standards that they're going to need for their spaces, or for any hybrid spaces for that matter. And those are just screen grabs from that. And as part of the materials there, you'll see the links to them on the DNP site, and also to the links to them on ours. This is a pull from the calculation tools on our site, where you can push and pull. You can say, well, if I have this image size, this projector, and this screen gain, what will the brightness of the screen be? Or if I need to achieve X nit of luminance on screen, and this is the screen size, what projector power do I need to do it? You need to do those kinds of tools in order to do that. And apart from the sheer size thing of the displays that Microsoft are moving to, we've got these new aspect ratios. Now, the thing that's really put the cat amongst the pigeons is this new. It was released in February last month. This year is going quickly, isn't it? Where they have with the new front row layout, you've got the option of 16:9 or this new 21:9 aspect ratio. Now that the resolution of 16:9 straight HD 1920 by 1080, the 21:9 is using the same pixel density, the same pixel size. It's just like adding on pixels to the side to get you to 2560, but still 1080 pixels high. The other bigger parts of that, which using that visual that we looked at earlier on, and some of the other materials that Microsoft have put out, Microsoft are doing it at the moment at 32:9. That is to say, they've got two hard edge blended, so two 16:9 projectors are butted up against each other. But however, we feel very strongly that in order to do this, really well, and to get a proper seamless image, it's going to involve using soft edge blending, and that can be a variety of, you can have any aspect ratio you want in that case, but using the standard metrics of a 15% overlap, which is our standard overlap that we do in our blending systems, then that gives you something around 28:9 as a number. By the way, I've got a lot of slides to get through, but I'm going to leave some space for Q&A at the end. I'm very respectful of people's time. Very grateful everyone has spent time, is going to spend time with us this afternoon. And I will finish. The thing will have finished formally by the turn of the hour at 5 o'clock here in UK time. However, I will stay around for a Q&A afterwards. We did a session on a webinar on Discuss on Tuesday, the day before yesterday. That was fantastic. We had some really good Q&A, particularly some quite challenging and great points from my friend Pete van der Zanden from the Technical University of Delft. He's an amazing guy, and he's going to be a keynote speaker at the LTSMG conference end of next month. And also we represent the software that they use to manage and to develop campus AV specifications. So anyway, the Q&A, I went off on a bit of a sidebar there. Excuse me. The Q&A we will do at the end. Let's just see what we get today. The thing with 21 to 9 is that this has caused a whole flurry of conversations and requests from clients, globally, around the world. This is because people are asking, can we have 21 to 9 screens? Well, the answer is yes, we can, and we are, we will be making them we're making projected systems in 21 to 9. However, I think again, if we get time, we'll talk about this later on as well. A lot of people are now, knowing that they don't know a lot of things. A lot of people are putting in sort of laboratory or experimental spaces where, to use the Google expression, you can dog food you can test and evaluate systems and sort of develop them before you put them out in the field. But although we do this basically with cut down projection screens. However, at the moment, unless you're very certain that you are going to be using the display in that mode all of the time, our recommendation is very strongly to go for the big screen, but keep it in 16 to 9 to add, if you like, add the height back to it. So, because I just think it's quite likely that people will switch between different modes. No doubt there will be some rooms which are only just front row, but I think the expense that goes into a space that just has a single row of people, I just see it as more likely that people are going to want to have reconfigurable spaces, where they're going to, where as part of that, what that will mean is that they go through different modes of use and different screen layouts. And the way that we do it is that we think that we're using 4K UHD projectors. We're using 3 LCD projectors on the products that we're building now and that we're demonstrating. We've got support from Epson. I'd like to give a shout out and and thank my friends and colleagues there. But we feel that it's best in terms of the flexibility of the system to use an external processor rather than to go straight into the projector. It's quite a complicated set of reasoning, and it's not a kind of a black and white thing, but that's basically the way that we're doing it. And particularly people who are installing evaluation spaces, then that's a good thing to have. But however, the nice thing about this is that it's a modular approach, and you can start with a projector, and if you want, you can add a processor in after it. But that's where we're at now. So now I'd like to think a little bit about camera position and how they're going to be deployed in future. If you've been looking at the various materials and videos that Mike's been putting out, what you'll see is that in some cases more obvious than other, but in this case, really quite obvious. You've got the camera placed in the screen, and I think that's a theme of where it's going to come. Now, this is work in progress, and this is another part of the reason why people are putting in these evaluation systems, and why I'm having a lot of discussions with a lot of people about this. In the Hive, what Microsoft call the Hive on their main campus in Seattle, they've put in one of these sort of super wide front row systems. And here you can see they've got the camera in a fairly traditional place. but the vision thing is to get the camera up somewhere around the level of eye height, which can be done. And I think there's going to be two main ways of that this will happen. One is that the small form factor cameras will be actually placed in free space, put in free space somewhere in front of the display. If you're using a much larger display canvas, what we call a digital canvas, then the relative size of a small form factor camera, and these cameras of course can be 4K or 6K, they can be fantastic resolution, that will be one part of it. But the other part of it is where our approach with projection is that which I'll look at a little bit more in a moment, but we are using for the kind of the main product complete product range that we have for this application. We're using ultra short throw projectors in these credenza style units. With the angle of projection being so steep, that will mean that we will be able to make a small cutout in the screen and place a camera behind that. And that this is one thing that we're working on with DNP, our screen material partners, as well as other partners as well. It's very much work in progress. But that kind of the whole thing with camera placement, I think that's going to have, we're going to see a real fresh look at that, and it's good to be part of that debate. And maybe that's something that people would like to throw into the comments or into the questions if they want at the end of the session. The multiple projection thing is that, as I said, although Microsoft is showing that at 32:9, and we can do that with a hard edge, we just think from a qualitative perspective, it'll be way better to have the projectors with a blend in that. And again, we use an external processor for that. And again, we take a modular approach to it, where we have this as separate pieces of kit. This gives flexibility, for the future as well. And not only do these boxes enable the external the soft edge blending, it also means you can have multi inputs and picture in picture. It looks as if I've got no idea, but it looks as if Microsoft are running two separate sessions in order to achieve that 32:9 display. But no doubt there's all sorts of interesting things going on campus in Seattle. Just wanted to drill down a bit more on the resolution thing. So when an image is static, like an Excel sheet or PowerPoint, then HD is just fine. But the human visual acuity, it's a cumulative thing. So as an object moves, our visual systems are adding more detail, to that. And in practice, the difference between an HD and a UHD image on a static image is hard to see if you've got the same content. But once the thing starts moving, then that's when it comes alive. So at the moment, that aspect ratio of 21:9 has this resolution, as we were saying, of 2560 by 1080, same pixel density as HD. But we think that that's going to be one of the things that we're going to see progress on, is moving up to higher resolutions, and that's why we are using 4K UHD projectors, as a standard thing, or as a recommendation anyway. And also why we're using external processors, so that the scaling thing can be taken care of, and you're not kind of relying on the projector to do that, because projectors do have limitations about what you can do with them. And having this modular approach we think is a much better way of having a system architecture, so that you can create a robust system that will stand the test of time. Quick word about environmental and sustainability. This is really coming to be a much bigger thing this year, particularly on campuses. Tenders are being scored with a much heavier weighting on that. And the great thing about a projection system is that, to use the only fools and horses gag, you have the same brush for broom for X number of years. You just have 3 new heads and 4 new handles. And that very much applies with with projection. You can have the screen, so long as it gets damaged, it can be up there for decades. And as projectors change, they get brighter, cheaper, higher resolution. They can be changed out. And the problem with flat panels is that apart from using up a lot more power, there's a lot of toxic landfill there waiting to happen when the kit eventually reaches end of life. The thing I'd like to highlight as well is this whole thing about UX. Now, Avixa is producing a new standard. I'm on the task group that's writing that. I have to say I'm there as someone who's, if you like, my specialism is in writing standards rather than as a UX expert. And we've got a handful of real superstars in the UX firmament there. The whole thing about UX, user experience, which in AV, like everywhere else, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and people often think as UX as being to be involved with the GUI design, with the design of the layout, the control panel, and so forth. Whereas really, it's a real holistic thing. And this standard will offer a lot of opportunities for AV to expand its remit, to play a much fuller role in the whole process, to get involved much earlier in the process of projects that involve AV. But also, it will have, I think, a real impact on the hybrid workspace, on the Teams room things. Now, one of my friends and colleagues on the UX standard is a guy called Adam Banks, who used to run the UX at Google, not at the same time as I was doing my gigs for Google, but we met on writing this standard. And he makes UX lab equipment, so you can record sessions and so forth. He's got a business called UX Study, and I think that there's a massive opportunity, for example, for campuses to develop new ways of working with hybrid teaching and learning, and also companies too. And having this done as a third-party assignment is actually part of the gig, or part of the brief, and very important to do. But just I think that thing about UX is something very much to keep in mind. When you're working with clients, I'm hearing on a daily basis now. Integrators or consultants who are working with massive clients who are really looking to work on developing these things. And I think that the whole thing about UX and actually looking at that as a kind of discrete formal element, within the development workflow is a massive thing, and by and large overlooked. The other thing I want to talk about, again, think about it from a holistic point of view, is that in my work in lighting design and consultancy for so forth, my professional body is Society of Light and Lighting, a subset of SIBC. We've got the IES in the States. But the World Building Standard now has, and particularly this new version 2, is this global standard which pulls together all the environmental standards, and it ticks the boxes completely now for what for all of the, and has the right emphasis and the right priorities for what workspaces are going to have to be in the future. They're going to be safe and pleasant places for employers to provide for their for their employees, for campuses to provide for their students. This is a massive thing, and I was talking with a client the other day, and the architect has decided to use the world building standard, and you just kind of know that the whole project will have a completely different look and feel about it. So I do advise you to check that out, or to ping me after this, and I'll send you some more details. Working quite closely with them, and off and on basis, trying to align their standards with Avixa's. So that's kind of work in progress, but a really useful thing to know about. So just thinking about the key points about what we've been talking about. I'm not going to read these out to you, in a kind of parrot fashion, but having this holistic approach is absolutely vital to producing really good user experiences. Going back to using AV standards, which kind of fell away last year in the rush to put in all these spaces, getting that right will just help that you get the basics right of the systems, and really help guide you to much better results. Think about how to future-proof your system. How you can make it as flexible as possible. You don't make too many commitments. That means you can't change direction if you need to, and you find that the workflows and how the spaces are being used will change over that. The image size, that's absolute 101, absolute basic. And what Microsoft are telling us is that we're going to be using displays on a whole level of magnitude greater than we had before. And that kind of drives the whole premise for what we're doing. And I think that there's a very strong pre-technology aspect that needs to be thought about in order to make these spaces work. So, we've been in visual displays, we've been thinking about this and think about how to apply, all of that foregoing thoughts and observations, and how to meet the challenges of Teams and Zoom rooms and all the hybrid spaces. And we've come up with these ranges of products. And they fall into two sort of categories. One is the digital canvas, and these are sort of standalone, all-in-one units. They've got rack units inside, so all of the kit, everything can be contained in it. You can have the camera placed on them or in them. I've talked about camera placement as well. We do them 120-inch, which I think will be the main standard size, 140-inch too, but we can make them to any size and to any aspect ratio. The other thing that's really caught people's attention is that to do with our background and our ongoing expertise in building immersive displays and simulation displays and so forth, is that we've put out some initial designs for how we are proposing to do curve screens for curve screen versions of the digital canvas for Teams rooms and Zoom rooms. And I think that as fantastic as the front row layout is, I think that it will add another feeling of intimacy and a reciprocity, between the in-person and the remote participants to sessions. Again, we're using UST lenses in them, and we can design and make these with single projectors, multiple projectors. It's our core expertise. Effectively, we've been waiting for this for a long time without realizing it, because we've been sort of honing our skills doing that. So that's the digital canvas. And then the digital canvas core, that's doing it the old-fashioned way with just bundles, but they're bundles that have been curated using standards and those calculators I was referring to, with using an ALR, ambient light rejecting screen, usually DNP, but we have other ones as well. Projector and Mount. So these bundles with standard direct throw, they can be wide angle, they can be long throw, but nevertheless sort of conventional things. Now, I think the reason that Microsoft have shown projection being done like this is because it's you don't need any dialogue. You can actually see it's a projector, it's hanging in free space. I think from an aesthetic perspective, and to keep the noise away from that, then the move to having to using UST lens projectors, either sort of hiding it in the ceiling or putting it in a credenza unit as we're doing, I think that will be an important step forward. Projection done properly does cost more than just getting a projector and pointing it at a white screen, but still it's way cheaper than the other technologies per square meter. And so this whole thing about getting it right is absolutely key to that. And so this is I'm into the part of this where I'm now proudly telling you about my company and what we do. This will just be brief, I promise you. So our background in immersive displays, everything from multi-projector domes, full surround dome systems, to caves, to curved screens, and these power walls with 3D, 2D. That's been very important of my professional life for 15, maybe 20 years. There's a lot of there are a lot of parts of simulation which really lend themselves to what we're trying to do with Teams rooms and with Zoom rooms. In simulation, we think in terms of cues, and so what we think about, what are those sensory cues that allow us to suspend our disbelief and to fully engage with something. The human visual and sensory perception is a powerful thing, because when you're looking at me, I'm actually upside down on your retina. It's just that the processing system is flipping me the right way around. So all that processing is going on in real time without any latency for you to see it the right way up. So we might express that the high level need here is for remote and in-person participants to be able to communicate as if they're in the same physical space, or as close to this as possible. And also, so what this means is beyond just merely seeing and hearing each other, it means capturing as many of the tacit and subliminal cues that currently make up the physical experience of sitting next to someone and being in a space and looking at things. The things that we lack, that we lack in these spaces, the body language, exchange glances, tensions, when the boss gets ratty, all those sorts of things. How are we going to develop that? And this is, I see it as breaking the fourth wall, to kind of misuse that theatrical expression. How can we break the wall that exists between the in-person and the remote view? And simulation has done a lot of work in that, and that's there and available now to work on these spaces. And so I think that the extent to which organizations, at least as a starting point, can develop the right virtual space and the screen templates, etc., so that by consistent use, the users can become habituated and can suspend their disbelief and just get on and work as naturally as if people are in the same space. Now that's a bit of a manifesto, but I think that we've got a long way to go on that. All right, so I think like I said, there's been a lot of things going on at the moment about having evaluation spaces and having all sorts of conversations about that. If any of you are doing that, please talk to us, because we're doing a lot in that area and having some really interesting discussions about that. So that's kind of that's something that to talk about. Just like to give a shout out to a couple of my friends and colleagues. I'm very proud to be associated with the AV user group. Owen Ellis, a friend and a colleague. He and I are going to start a podcast soon, by the way, as if you haven't had enough of us. I'm very proud to be associated with the user group. I go and give them, master classes on standards or whatever else I'm kind of rattling on about, and in return for that, they give me drinks at the end of the day. So what could be better than that? And the other thing is that we're very proud to be involved with and to be main sponsors of the LTSMG. So for those of you out with the UK, that's the technology managers group for university, for higher education universities. We did a group of webinars at the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm trying to visit as many campuses as I can at the moment, because I'm, as I've kind of said at the front end of this, I'm really looking to learn as much as I can. And I think that the only way of doing that is to take my meters and my lasers and stuff out there and actually measure and see what's going on out there. So just in terms of the financial side of things, I just wanted to kind of, I think there's sometimes a bit of lack of clarity about how we engage with the world. So we're a specialist company, and really what we invite our clients to do is to engage with all or any of our services. It's a pick and mix thing. We do the specialist consultancy, we do design, we do manufacture, we make these digital canvas displays, we work with proof of concept and troubleshooting, and we use, and we also have a product which is an advanced laser tool, which we use again mainly in simulation, but it's going to come through in that. So we work actively with all parts of the food chain, right through from end users right through to resellers. However, all of our hardware and solutions are supplied through resellers and integrators. Right, so that's me done. I've gone a bit closer to the hour than I wanted to, but in fact, we've had a fairly quiet day on the chat and on the questions. I've obviously stunned you into silence, but I'm going to stick around for a little while to answer questions or have a chat with anybody who wants to talk about anything. But just wanted to say thanks very much for attending this. It's been a fantastic experience for me to do these webinars. I get a lot from it, and I learn a lot from it, which is my main objective. Any of the other webinars, you can get the slides and the recordings from it, as you want. Just ping me with anything else. I will be doing some more in the future, particularly around standards, I think, and to get into some of the more crunchy details. And we do them of different lengths too. For those of you, particularly, consultants, whatever, I also do, one-on-one sessions with groups of people. I'm very happy to do that. Very happy to evangelize about standards, very happy to evangelize about my business and what we do and what my lovely and clever colleagues do as well. So it looks as if we are going to finish on time, because I don't see any questions or any comments. So I'll stick around for a while, but that's basically me done talking. And just really very, very grateful to have so many people coming and joining us. And come and see another webinar soon. Thanks, Tom. Nice to see you last the course. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mr. Corker. Lovely to see you. Right, I'm going to do what I say, and I'm going to sign off on the hour. So thanks again. Lovely to see everyone.